Hello and welcome to an icon new video, and today I'm going to prove that Ralsei is a lying bitch! Oh god! I mean, Ralsei is a lying cunt. Now firstly we have to establish what exactly Ralsei lies about, because it's way more than you actually think he does. First scene is the queen scene. Yes, that's queen and not a dildo. In this scene is the one I'm referring to is the last scene where Ralsei explains what the roaring is. Now, I have absolutely no evidence to back up this claim. However, that hasn't stopped Jaru before, so I can do it too. See, when Ralsei explains the roaring in this scene, Ralsei is actually lying about it. He's giving this explanation to give the player a purpose, because he knows the player exists, and he knows that because of the following scene. That, of course, being the funny scenes. I think that's how you do a women's symbol, I don't know. It's supposed to show lesbianism. See, in the normal version of the lesbian scene, you get to see what happens in the scene. However, in the Snowgrave version, you don't get to see what happens in that scene, because Chris is the one that actively stops it. And Ralsei is very confused about this whole thing. Because Ralsei, presumably in chapter 1, where Chris and Ralsei had a conversation without the player being there, presumably told Chris to go ahead and create that opportunity. And so when Ralsei initiated it in the lesbianism scene, that's when he figured that would happen. So when Chris actually just noped out of there, Ralsei was confused because Ralsei knows the player exists. Or whatever entity you are saying is, you know, taking over Chris. I don't really care what you think, but like I'm saying the player because like is the one I like. So the player. Is it like maybe like this? No. Now, we know that Ralsei had a conversation with Chris in chapter 1. We don't know what that conversation was about, but we also know they can potentially have a conversation in chapter 2. And if we go under the assumption that the chapter 1 conversation was about the chapter 3 Dark Fountain, because no matter if you skip this conversation with Ralsei and Chris will open the chapter 3 Dark Fountain. So maybe the conversation they had in chapter 1 is the cause for that. And if that were the case, then lying here would make the most sense. See, what I think is happening is that there are multiple nights. Chris is one of them. And in chapter 3 is basically chapter 3 is the distraction. See, Chris is the liability. Chris is the one controlled by the player. And so, if Chris opens a Dark Fountain, we can curate where the player goes. If the player is busy with a Dark Fountain, then the player cannot create destroy another Dark Fountain. So what if they were to create 2 fountains at the exact same time, curate one to be destroyed by the player, but then have the second one stay open, and they do that in every single chapter until the roaring happens in the final one. Because the roaring isn't actually this whole thing that they told Queen. No, that's a lie. A dirty stinking one at that. See, the roaring is actually just the process of cutting Chris off. See, Chris is currently being controlled. That much is fucking obvious. Like, if you don't believe it at this point, you're actually fucking stupid. See, whatever is controlling Chris, whether it be the player or literally anything else, the roaring doesn't actually go ahead and destroy the world. It actually severs this connection. And one of my different other theories is that it's actually the survey program that allows us control over Chris. Because you see, Chris could technically be able to cut away the player. However, that's kind of stupid because the player can then delete the entire world. However, in chapter 1, we got that through the survey program. So, what I think is happening is that the player from our universe, the you playing on the keyboard, you are playing the survey program, taking control over Chris. And the roaring, or the dark energy created by the so-called roaring, is the thing that makes this connection disappear. So the reason Ralsei would be lying here is literally to just throw the player off. The reason that there's a second Dark Fountain in chapter 3, maybe perhaps perchance, is to throw the player off and only make them do a single thing. Thinking that there's only one night, when there in actuality are multiple nights all opening Dark Fountains at different times. Additionally, fun fact, I don't think that this is a very safe process either. Because you see, it takes almost an entire afternoon to destroy a dark world. If the Knight truly wanted to make, as much dark energy as possible, they would just continuously go everywhere and stab the ground. If all it takes to create a dark world is like a goddamn knife and a bit of determination in the floor, that means that there's no reason there would only be one at a time. So what I think is going on is that they are trying to create this sort of energy that comes from a dark fountain, which I'm just gonna call dark energy because why not? They are trying to get the dark energy going. However, if they are careless and produce too much dark energy, then the roaring will still happen. And basically what they are counting on is that the player actively destroys some of them and, you know, actually gets the roaring to not happen, but the connection severing to happen. Basically, in layman's terms, Ralsei is a lying fucking bitch. Because Ralsei is trying to divert attention from the Dark Fountain. To sever the connection between Chris and the survey program. Ralsei is aware of the player because of the lesbian scene. The boat scene is creepy as fuck and probably an acknowledgement of the player. However, we know it from here. This confirms to me that the player is something that exists, or at least the survey program, and Ralsei is aware of said survey program and our player. And also, please, Toby, don't ever make a fucking boat scene again. Do I have evidence for literally any of this? Absolutely fucking not. But fun fact, no one has any evidence for literally any theory on this goddamn game. We have 2 of 7 chapters, for fuck's sake. All of us are wrong. None of us are correct, guys. Do I genuinely think this will happen? No. If you want to know what I think genuinely happens in Deltarune, you're gonna have to wait, because I'm not saying that. Well, I guess you watched, like, my first ever Deltarune theory video, which was fair play. So the only thing I have left to say, Muffet goes absolutely goddamn hard! Cue the clown.